Okay. Again, if you haven't checked in on campus, please do that. Uh, Couple things I want to do today. I want to go over this practice test. I'm going to introduce the second practice test and kind of my expectations for each question as well as for the test. Uh, and then I will go over to Teams and I'll just be available for questions. Okay. So this really shouldn't take long. Um, but as we go through it, if you have questions, just put them in the chat and I'll get to them. Okay. So this is the practice test that was in topics. Uh, all of you should have been able to do all of this. Um, it's not a very long test. Uh, you will have the entire block period to do it, and you'll be able to submit it to on campus. All right. I will give a little wiggle room before and after the period, just so if you're having trouble submitting it, you'll have a little bit more time. Okay. Um, but for now, are there any questions, any specific questions on any of the problems? So I was reading attendance. It didn't seem like there were many. But if there are, uh, tell me and I can go over them directly. Okay. Until then, I'm just going to keep scrolling through. Um, and again, as you have questions, just post them. Okay. Um, Couple things. Keep in mind the blank version of this is in on campus. It's practice test seniors, and then there's another one that I just posted with kind of the same title except with a two on it. All right. Um, all of the answers are on there. I highly suggest you be able to do this without notes um, and without help. I get that you'll have kind of those available to you, and that's fine. Um, but you do have a time window in which you need this done. Okay. So on Friday, what will happen is that I will open up a version of the test. I'll have it in on campus or I'll email it to you or both. And then you do it in your notebook, you print it out, or you do it on your tablet, which I doubt many people will do. And then You do all the problems, you check all of them, you take a picture of them, and you submit them to On Campus, kind of like you did the homework. All right. So I'll give you the block period. I'll probably open up the test about 10 to 15 minutes before, and then I'll probably close the test 10 to 15 minutes after. All right. So total, you're looking at probably a little bit over an hour and a half that you have to do this and then submit it. Okay. How many questions will be on the test? Just like all of my other tests, the practice tests look at the exact same. This is a 6-question test. This isn't meant to be super hard. I just want to make sure that you understand a couple of the concepts, and then we move on to probability. Okay, so this is more so you see how this entire thing looks, and then we move on to something maybe a little bit more interesting. Okay, my purpose wasn't to spend a whole lot of time on this. That's my point. Okay. Yeah, so this will look exactly like the test. Okay. Questions 1 through 3, those will be operations on matrices. So you'll have to be able to add, subtract, multiply matrices by scalars, and multiply matrices by other matrices. Okay. That means you need to know dimensions of matrices and different corresponding elements. Okay. And that's these first 3. So again, adding matrices, multiplying matrices by scalars, and multiplying matrices by themselves, or by other matrices. Question 4, solve a system of 3 equations using elimination. All right, I feel like we've got that pretty well down. I do expect you to show all work. I get that this can be confusing. I get that there's a lot of steps here, and there's a lot of different places to screw up, okay? But it's still the same pattern every single time. All right, you pick 2 equations, you eliminate 1 variable, get it down to a system of 2 variables. Pick another 2 equations, eliminate the same variable, and so on, okay? In order to check, I would plug in X, Y, and Z into one of the originals and just see if you get the right-hand side. That's a really quick way to check. You can also, you're going to have a calculator available too. You can always check using RREF. So you can actually know the answers before you even get them, right? I am okay with you being able to do that. You have tools available, use them, okay? So use that RREF, get the answers before you actually do the elimination, and then work toward the answers. I do care about all the work. I do care that you get the right answers to use an elimination, but that RREF operation in your calculator can be really, really helpful. Okay. Kramer's rule. Everything on the bottom left, so finding the determinant of your coefficient matrix, I expect that to be done by hand. Again, you can use your calculator to check that determinant, but I do expect you to set everything up as you see on the screen. All right. After that, you set up Kramer's rule in the top right. Again, I expect you to set everything up, but you can do all of that in a calculator as well. All right. So I expect to see the work. I expect to see what you're actually plugging into your calculator, but you can actually do those operations and then get an answer from your calculator. All right. And again, you can check the answers to this using RREF. So you can still have the answers before you even get there. All right, I'm just expecting you to know what Kramer's rule says and to know how it's set up. And then number 6, that's just a system of 2 equations, which is like the very first thing we did. You've been doing this your junior year and your freshman year. So this is something that should be known pretty well. I am expecting you to be able to do that using substitution, graphing, or elimination. If you graph it, I expect you to draw that graph and where it actually intersects. Okay, and then you would still have to solve for y and all of that. But yeah, that's pretty much just the test. It's not meant to be super hard. I get that this is a different context. If it wasn't, it might look a little bit different. But for now, this seems all right. Okay, so going over the different expectations. Do you guys have any questions that I can answer? Generally, I guess, or specifically about different problems. Okay, number 6. I'm confused with what happened to the 9x plus 4y equals 30 part in number 6. All right. So in that system, I chose elimination. Right? And I chose to eliminate the y's. In order to do that, I multiplied the top one by 4 and the bottom one by 5. And then that became negative 16x minus 20y equals 92, and 45x plus 20y equals negative 150. And then I could eliminate these y's and just get a system of just x. And then obviously solve for x, and then use x to solve for y. Any other questions on any of these problems, test in general, anything that you guys are unsure about? Will there be a fraction answer like the one in number 5? There could be. I'm okay with those. Again, you can check all of this using RREF, so there's no reason that fraction answers should scare you that much. And again, you can always plug in, like if you really want to check it, like double check it, you can plug in x equals 4, y equals negative 11 over 2, and z is equal to 21 over 10 into one of these 3 equations and see if you get the right-hand side. Okay, so there's a whole lot of different ways to check these answers. So I think fraction answers are okay. If that makes you think just a little bit more instead of having your calculator do all the work, I'm okay with that. Okay, now, if you go to on campus, go to our class, go to topics, go to systems of equations and matrices, there's a second practice test here. All right. I believe yeah. Okay, so I posted the answers, but this is a totally blank practice test. I would like you to do that now. And then I will be available on Teams if you have any specific questions on specific problems. Okay, so I realize this probably wasn't very long. That's okay. I don't think there's a whole lot that needs to be addressed again. So I'll leave this open for the next minute or so. And if you have any questions, I'll answer them. But as of right now, in the next like 4 or 5 minutes, I'll be on Teams. I'll start a meeting and I'll be available as you guys do the practice test on your own. Can we go over multiplying matrices with different columns and rows? Yes. And yes, test number 2. It's the bottom one. All right. So all right, so say we have these two matrices. All right, obviously they have different rows and different columns. In order to multiply these two together, the first thing you need to do is to get the dimensions of each. All right, so this left-hand matrix that has 3 rows and 2 columns, and this right-hand matrix that has 2 rows and 4 columns. In order for us to be able to multiply those two things together, these two middle numbers have to be equal. Okay, and since they are equal, our new matrix is going to be a 3-row and 4-column matrix. So it's just the two numbers left over. Right, and each element has kind of a different coordinate. All right, so this top left-hand one, that's 1, 1, which means we're multiplying the first row by the first column. Okay, so this first element is 4 times 3 plus 1 times 4. This next element, that's the first row, second column. So we multiply this first row by this second column. So 4 times 1 plus 1 times 5. First row, third column. So 4 times 0 plus 1 times negative 1. And then first row, fourth column, 4 times 2 plus 1 times 6. And then you just go about that for each element. Okay, so this is second row, first column. So we multiply the second row by the first column. So 5 times 3 plus 7 times 4. Two, 2. So we multiply the second row times the second column. So 5 times 1 plus 7 times 5. Second row, third column, 5 times 0 plus 7 times negative 1. And then second row, fourth column. So 5 times 2 plus 7 times 6. All right, now if you keep following this pattern, you should notice that in parentheses is always going to be the same going down, and outside of parentheses, or the way, at least the way I have it set up, they're the same across. Okay, so the first number is always the same going across. Second number is always the same going down. All right, and then if we just fill this out, and then you would simplify each of those numbers, and then you'd be done. Okay, does that clear it up at all? Okay, I'm gonna close up the stream. I will be on Teams here in the next like minute or two. And if you have any specific questions on the second practice test, that's where I can answer them. Okay, so I'm gonna close this, and I'll see you guys in the next like minute or two.